Deadly drug disguised to look like candy is now circulating in Georgia. It's called rainbow fentanyl.
Before dawn, the Jefferson neighborhood remained quiet. In the narrow alleys, the streetlights were still fading, leaving only a few dim glows from the porches. 6 minutes after 4 in the morning, a synchronized signal came from the command center. Team 1, confirm position. Team 2, lock the perimeter. At the end of the street, armored vehicles stopped exactly at their assigned spots. Their beams were lowered under civilian safety protocol. No sirens, no alarms. Only flashlight beams swept across the windows, signaling that the intervention had begun. A short-duration stun device was activated, following risk control standards. It created a safety window for the entry team. Nearby residents heard only a short, contained blast, followed by a calm announcement through loudspeakers. Federal agents, remain in place. Do not leave your homes. Within 2 minutes, the entire 200-meter block was sealed off. Traffic was reduced to 1 lane. Civilian security was raised to Tier 3. The target house looked like any ordinary residence. A wooden fence, 2 cars parked in the driveway, and a broken flagpole. But behind the front door was a completely different structure. Tangled wiring, internal cameras, a logistics board, and a strong chemical odor filled the air. The tactical team quickly noted that this was likely more than just a storage site for illegal goods. It could be a coordination hub for a wider transport network. That marked the beginning of a joint operation in Georgia. It was one of the largest coordinated missions last year between the FBI, the DEA, the U.S. Marshals, and local law enforcement. The primary goal was not only to seize evidence, but also to uncover the operational structure hidden behind what seemed to be a quiet suburban block. That was the opening, but what about the process and the limits of the operation? Before any door was breached, the intervention protocol had already been standardized into multiple layers of authorization. In this operation, the warrants were approved by the federal court for the Northern District of Georgia. They were valid for 48 hours. Each tactical unit could act only after completing 3 confirmations: a valid warrant, a synchronized signal from command, and a verified civilian safety status. The participating forces were divided into 3 tiers: containment, entry, and collection. The containment team established a perimeter roughly 300 meters around the target site. They instructed nearby residents to stay in place. The entry team, composed of special agents equipped with shields and body cameras, recorded the entire process inside the house. Once the building was declared secure, the collection unit moved in. They sealed and cataloged evidence under federal code. Every movement was tied to an exact timestamp and a designated officer. When locks were breached, a technician documented the precise second to cross-check with the warrant and the body cam footage. In the record, this was called chain of custody initiation. It marked the opening of a legally monitored evidence chain. The goal was to ensure that no piece of evidence could be moved or unsealed outside of verified supervision. For on-site risks, each team was trained to handle 4 primary scenarios: uninvolved persons inside, visible weapons, flammable materials, and large animals. Each scenario had its own priority rule: preserve life first, preserve evidence second. If an armed individual was encountered, the entry team had to record the exact location before disarming. Any discharge of a firearm, if absolutely necessary, had to be reported over a secure radio channel and documented in writing within 30 minutes. The civilian safety standard was set to avoid secondary shock. That meant all stun devices and mechanical tools were adjusted to minimize noise and vibration, preventing disturbance to adjacent homes. In the Jefferson area, power was locally cut off as a precaution before the entry team breached the house, reducing the risk of ignition or explosion. Civilian electricity was restored only after the technical team confirmed the area was safe. All communication between the FBI, ICE, DEA, and local police went through the federal radio channel HSIG-9, encrypted under Homeland Security standards. Area commanders were only authorized to issue orders within their assigned mission scope, avoiding overlap or conflict of authority. This was especially critical in an operation that lasted several hours and involved hundreds of personnel across multiple levels. Post-operation review began immediately after the intervention ended. Every body cam video, radio recording, and evidence report was uploaded to the system within 6 hours. If any discrepancy appeared between the time of authorization and the time of action, the case would be independently reviewed by the Office of the Inspector General under the Department of Justice. This procedure not only protected civil rights, but also ensured the legal integrity of all evidence. It allowed the operation to remain transparent and under federal oversight. That was the procedure. Now came the field execution. At 4:36 in the morning, the temporary command center was operating from a converted warehouse on the outskirts of Athens. It had an independent power source and a multi-screen monitoring system. From there, the signal "Lock the network" was transmitted. Each team received its own identification packet containing the movement schedule, approach route, and assigned target. 13 federal and state units activated simultaneously. On the digital map, 12 red dots appeared, each representing a house, a warehouse, or a storefront suspected of storing evidence. Team 1 in Jefferson reported first. The metal door was breached precisely on command. 2 agents entered, their body cameras capturing the first recorded frames of the operation. Inside, a fine layer of white dust covered the floor. Sealed nylon packages were scattered across the kitchen table. A chemical technician on site conducted a rapid test. The result came back positive for cocaine. The back room contained chemical drums and open solvent cans, signs consistent with methamphetamine production. The basement was inspected in 4 minutes. There, the team found an oil-sealed wooden crate containing mechanical components, including M-series launcher tubes and 3 unregistered handguns. On the back wall, transport diagrams were taped up, routes running from Texas through Alabama to a distribution hub in Georgia. All data was photographed, copied to a temporary hard drive, and the original sealed inside evidence bag, number HD01. At 5:02 in the morning, a parallel report came from Athens. The DEA team had entered another facility. From the outside, it looked like an auto repair shop, but inside was a false accounting office and a cashier's room. They seized a money counter, 2 handwritten ledgers, and 5 active cell phones. One of the devices was still receiving encrypted messages from a number linked to Mexico. The content read, "Phase 2 delayed, route south," quoted directly from the evidence. This line led command to believe that a second shipment was retreating south. In Atlanta, the HSI team reached a storage warehouse. Inside, dozens of laptops were placed on racks alongside hardware wallets used to store cryptocurrency. On-site analysts identified a file named ledger.csv, which matched a pattern previously found in money laundering records linked to the Sinaloa network. Part of the data was encrypted, but query commands still showed transfer flows nearing $1 million within 2 weeks. At 5:25, the command center zoomed in on the southern sector of the map. A thermal trace appeared along Highway 82, indicating a possible convoy in motion. Georgia State Patrol received the order to establish soft checkpoints at 3 stations, Monroe, Jackson, and Clark. At the same time, the Department of Transportation temporarily halted civilian traffic on nearby roads to prevent vehicles from entering the soon-to-be restricted area. At 5:48 in the morning, a fixed-wing drone took off from an auxiliary runway, transmitting live infrared footage. 3 heat sources moved slowly beneath the tree canopy, only a few hundred meters apart. The data streamed to the command center, displaying coordinates updated each second. After cross-checking license plates and vehicle shapes, command confirmed they matched the targets listed in the case file. At 6:02 in the morning, 3 vehicles from the FBI and the U.S. Marshals moved in parallel along Highway 82, maintaining safe distance. When the convoy entered the control zone, the lead unit activated warning lights, signaling for the vehicles to stop. 1 truck slowed down and surrendered. The second attempted to accelerate, but was stopped using a wheel lock maneuver. Within 3 minutes, the scene was stabilized. Inside the truck bed were heavy wooden crates bearing markings identical to those found in Jefferson. The technical unit opened them for inspection. 20 compressed drug packages and several mechanical launcher components were documented. All evidence items were labeled from CB05 to CB27, photographed and sealed. At 6:35, the Cyber Investigation Unit uploaded freshly collected phone data to the internal network. Several contacts were traced to anonymous accounts used in cross-border transactions. Within 30 minutes, the HSI financial team filed a temporary seizure report for digital wallets valued at approximately $900,000, according to preliminary estimates. This was considered the first step in disrupting the financial flow of the operation. At 6:50 in the morning, the digital map inside the command center updated. All 12 target sites had completed their searches. The red grids turned blue, marked as secure. A voice came over the communication system. Phase 1 complete. Maintain perimeter. At 7:10, the digital forensics unit in Athens received the electronic evidence. Hard drives, computers, and cell phones were placed on metal tables and numbered. They created bit-level copies, locked the originals in the evidence vault, and began building a reverse financial model, tracing the money flow back to its source. Analysts identified several IP addresses, matching servers in California and Texas, suggesting the network had a federal structure rather than a single state operation. At 7:25, local police coordinated with the public safety communication team, going door to door around Jefferson. They informed residents that the area was now safe and advised them to avoid the scene for 24 hours while power restoration was underway. Some families were temporarily relocated outside the restricted zone for structural inspection. At 7:42, the technical team reviewed drone footage. In one frame, they spotted a small aerial device briefly passing near the warehouse that had been searched, suspected to be an unauthorized surveillance drone. The image was isolated and forwarded to the counterintelligence unit. The command center raised its alert level to secondary network still active. At 7:58, an information lockdown order was issued to prevent media leaks. At the same time, the HSI team in Washington accessed the related foreign currency accounts and submitted coordination requests to international financial control agencies. At 8 o'clock, the main roads reopened. On local radio, a short announcement aired. The federal operation in North Georgia has completed Phase 1. There is no remaining civilian threat in the Jefferson area. At 8:10, inside the command center, the chief reviewed the final list of evidence: 27 packages, 19 electronic devices, 6 vehicles, and approximately 1.3 tons of synthetic narcotics, all awaiting final seal verification. One line was added to the end of the report: verify wallet number, matching transaction 23 alpha. At 8:27, daylight was breaking outside. Teams began to withdraw, leaving only technical and forensic units to finalize documentation. Inside the warehouse, evidence tables were arranged by priority for analysis. Each body camera was connected for charging and video backup. All data was scheduled for upload to the central analysis system within the next 6 hours. At 8:41, the information system issued a Phase 1 complete alert to all units. Almost simultaneously, the system log confirmed the operational window from 4:36 to 8:41 in the morning, a total duration of 4 hours and 5 minutes. According to the preliminary assessment, this was one of the fastest multi-point closures in the eastern region within the past 5 years. The scene was closed. Now attention turned to the statistics. Initial figures were compiled during the first morning after the operation. All were preliminary estimates, pending forensic verification, but sufficient to reflect the real scale of the network. According to preliminary reports from the FBI and the DEA, the task force seized more than 1 ton of synthetic narcotics, including cocaine, methamphetamine, and fentanyl, along with over 700,000 counterfeit pain relief pills. Analysts emphasized that these numbers were provisional, based on gross field weight, and could change after laboratory evaluation. The amount of fentanyl alone was estimated to equal several million potentially lethal doses, but federal agencies withheld exact figures due to high measurement uncertainty. Regarding weapons, a total of 52 units were logged, 24 handguns, 17 semi-automatic rifles, 3 specialized sidearms, and 1 M-series launcher tube, all classified as high-risk evidence. The weapons examination team reported that most serial numbers had been removed or replaced with hand-stamped codes, a pattern often seen in international smuggling operations. On the financial side, preliminary records showed nearly $2.8 million in cash seized from various locations. Most of it was hidden in component boxes, civilian safes, or specialized transport bags. In Athens alone, the DEA team found 3 handwritten ledgers recording weekly transactions totaling about $900,000. The figures matched the digital wallet data previously frozen by the HSY team. Preliminary financial analysis revealed a direct connection between this money and a series of cross-border transfers using intermediary accounts in Caribbean banks. Beyond cash, the Economic Investigation Unit recorded an unidentified quantity of precious metal. According to the report, roughly 3 tons of material in the form of gold bars and alloy ingots were sealed. These bars carried no official assay marks, leading experts to believe they might represent a method of asset transfer for laundering proceeds. Purity levels would be verified by spectrometer during the second phase of forensic testing. Meanwhile, the hard drives and digital devices seized were cataloged separately under the Ledger Digital category. 19 devices, including laptops, phones, and hardware wallets, contained cryptocurrency transaction data. The HSI team confirmed at least 7 digital wallets with a total estimated value of about $900,000 had been frozen. The figure remained preliminary since part of the assets were tied to transaction chains with no confirmed ownership. Financial analysts cautioned that converting the quantity of fentanyl into potentially lethal doses should be viewed only as a statistical estimate, not an absolute value. According to the CDC's public reference, 2 milligrams could be considered a potentially fatal amount. If that formula were applied, the fentanyl seized would be enough to endanger millions of people. However, officials emphasized that this projection was illustrative, not definitive. Every piece of evidence, whether a white powder package or a digital wallet, was encoded with an identification string in the interagency system. The prefixes HD, CB, and LDG allowed synchronization across the FBI, DEA, and HSI, preventing duplication or data chain loss. All records were mirrored in 2 federal data centers to guarantee retrieval capability during prosecution. The numbers tell part of the story, but their interpretation defines investigative value. After the raid sequence concluded, investigators began reassessing how both sides had evolved. The cartel and the federal task forces had adapted, but in opposite directions. For the cartel, recovered data indicated they no longer operated through vertical hierarchy. They had shifted to a fragmented cell model. Each small unit communicated for only a few days before erasing its own data, forcing investigators to restart the trace after each cycle. Some rented houses were under short-term contracts, registered under false identities or foreign students, masking administrative checks. This structure reflected rapid adaptation to long-term federal surveillance. Technology changed as well. The encrypted phones and digital wallets seized reflected a trend of virtual calls, real data. Coordination groups used temporary server platforms that self-erased within 24 hours. Some apps automatically rotated user identifiers, making unauthorized access nearly impossible without the physical device. This adaptation was a direct response to the new federal policy disabling unregistered SIM cards and tightening telecom controls. On the federal side, adaptation occurred in both tactics and workflow. Teams from the FBI, DEA, and HSI shifted toward data-driven response models using heat maps, transaction matching algorithms, and automated financial alerts. As a result, linked digital wallets could now be detected within minutes instead of days. In the field, tactical teams adopted a fast entry, short duration principle, operating within a 4 to 5 hour window, minimizing heavy machinery, and reducing civilian disruption. This improved operational security and lowered the risk of leaks before execution. Mobile technical teams were also formed, specialized in processing live data within 3 hours of evidence collection. A new layer of prevention also emerged. After the Jefferson case, residential areas and universities were advised to verify tenant identities, update temporary residence lists, and report unusual cash transactions. It was a form of community adaptation, not direct confrontation, but reducing the cartel's ability to rebuild civilian cover. At the same time, cybersecurity divisions deployed digital decoy networks, fake servers mimicking the wallets previously used by the cartel. Within the first week, 3 foreign IP addresses accessed these systems, providing new leads on the direction of financial movement. The clearest difference lay in speed. Criminal cells needed several days to re-establish communication channels. Federal systems required only minutes to match anomalies. That gap became a tactical advantage and a sign that the next phase of this conflict would gradually shift into the data domain. Adaptation was not just a reaction to the opponent, but an ongoing process of self-adjustment to remain unpredictable. Costs changed, and so did strategy. From a legal perspective, the Jefferson operation was classified as a multi-layered federal case, both criminal and financial in nature. According to preliminary prosecutorial filings, the primary charges centered on conspiracy to distribute controlled substances and cross-border money laundering under Title 21, Section 846, and Title 18, Section 1956 of the United States Code. The separate offense of possessing unregistered firearms fell under Title 26, Section 5861. These references are used solely to describe the prosecution framework. All suspects remain presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. The chain of custody held central importance. Every item of evidence, from narcotics to digital storage, was sealed, coded, signed, and transferred through 3 layers: collection team, forensic unit, and the federal evidence facility. Any discrepancy in time or signature could invalidate the evidence in court. For digital data, the protocol was even stricter. Hard drives and hardware wallets were duplicated, with originals kept in the evidence vault and copies transferred to forensic specialists. Every access action was logged with a timestamp and the operator's credentials, ensuring the original data remained unchanged. Following collection, the Office of the United States Attorney for the Northern District of Georgia and the Department of Justice reviewed the constitutional validity of the warrants, confirming both jurisdiction and scope. For materials obtained overseas, legal assistance requests were filed to ensure the evidence would be admissible before a U.S. court. For assets suspected of money laundering, the HSI initiated a civil forfeiture process to prevent funds from re-entering the network prior to trial. Public notice was issued so that potential owners could contest the seizure within the legally defined period. Law sets boundaries. Reality poses questions. Although the Jefferson operation was regarded as a success, several issues remained unresolved. First, the question of information leaks. The cartel's knowledge of the term Phase 2 suggested possible procedural exposure or reverse analysis. The internal review was still ongoing, with no conclusion announced. Second, the depth of financial infiltration remained unclear. Many transactions through intermediary Caribbean banks lacked verified ownership. Experts warned that the identified sums represented only the visible portion of the money flow. Third, the community impact. After the operation, public anxiety spread rapidly across social media. Authorities had to balance operational secrecy with transparency, ensuring rumors did not outpace verified facts. Finally, the risk of network reconstruction persisted away. New data indicated several remaining cells were using technical service covers to restore cash flow. These unknown factors were not part of the official report, yet they would determine the lasting outcome of the operation. From an operational standpoint, what message remained? The Jefferson campaign closed with impressive numbers: tons of narcotics seized, millions of dollars frozen, and an armed network dismantled. But the true value of the operation did not lie in the numbers. It lay in the process, in how federal agencies organized, coordinated, and adapted. The first lesson: success comes not from scale, but from standardized action. When 13 agencies can operate as one unified system, the margin of error becomes nearly zero. Each agent, each technician, needed only to follow the sequence, not improvise beyond it. That discipline reflected the administrative precision proven by the operation. The second lesson: adaptation is the only active form of defense. The cartel evolved quickly, but data analytics, algorithms, and real-time responses allowed the law to keep pace. Law enforcement had shifted from a reactive investigation model to a preventive intervention approach. And the final lesson: responsible communication. Jefferson showed that an operation could maintain investigative secrecy while publicly sharing results without causing panic. Transparency did not mean revealing everything. It meant explaining just enough to maintain public trust. After Jefferson, the files grew thicker, but so did the process itself. The numbers would remain in the data. What mattered more was the method, the structure that could be replicated, refined, and applied to the next operation. No slogan can cover a procedural flaw. Only a precise process can preserve safety and trust.